Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of the Money Pros. I'm Oliver Tutt, Certified Financial Planner Practitioner. I'm going to be your host for the next half hour as we talk about all the issues related to your money, how to make it, how to keep it, and hopefully how to help it grow. So we've got a lot to talk about on today's show. Let me give you an idea what we're going to talk about. You ever wonder where the wealthy in America live? So there's an interesting study that came out from Bloomberg News. We're going to talk about what are the wealthiest zip codes in America by income. So we'll go through the details of how they concocted that and talk about the top 5 wealthiest zip codes in the United States. In case you're considering relocating, none of them are actually in Rhode Island. We're going to be joined by our estate planning money pro, Nancy Fisher Chudacoff from Cameron and Mittleman. We're going to be talking about those all-important beneficiary designation forms. If you've ever been faced with having to fill one out, they can be a challenge. They're all different. The questions are confusing. Hopefully Nancy's going to be able to help clarify some of the issues surrounding filling those out. In our third segment, does the IRS owe you money? You know, tax day just passed. So you may have had to write a check to the IRS, but in many cases, the IRS owes taxpayers money going back several years. So we're going to talk about that and what some of the common reasons for that are. So with all that to get to, let's jump right in. And let's talk about the wealthiest zip codes in America. Where do the wealthy call home? So there was an analysis done by Bloomberg News, and essentially what they did is look at IRS data, and they went back to as recently as the 2015 filing season, which was the most recent data that was available for Bloomberg to do the analysis. And they looked at zip codes where there were more than 200 tax returns filed and more than 500 households. So that was the criteria. There's probably a lot of other places where there technically is a zip code, but not a lot of residents and things like that. So they wanted to pinpoint places where people actually live. And they came up with 22,000 different zip codes that they could do the analysis. And what they wanted to look at was income. So they looked at the bottom line number for income on a tax return, which is known as your AGI or adjusted gross income. And they found a lot of interesting stuff. So I wanted to share it with the Money Pros audience. First of all, probably comes as no surprise that the top zip codes were dominated state-wise by California, as well as the New York tri-state area, so Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, suburbs surrounding Manhattan. Also states that had zip codes on the list pretty consistently were places with favorable tax treatment, namely places where there was no state income tax. Now, New Hampshire did not make the list, but certainly Florida made the list a few times, as well as places like Wyoming had zip codes where the wealthy reside. So there was a lot of interesting results from the study. So we're going to go through a slide. I want to talk about, just quickly list the top 5 wealthiest zip codes. Starting number 5 is Harrison, New York. This is a suburb of Manhattan. I couldn't tell you exactly where it is, but the median adjusted gross income, $0.97 million. So nearly $1 million a year average income in Harrison, New York. Number 4, Palo Alto, California. So this is Silicon Valley that we all talk about and hear about all the time. Average median income in Palo Alto, California, $1.17 million. Number 3, swinging to the other side of the country, Palm Beach, Florida. Winter home to our president. Average median income in Palm Beach, Florida, $1.25 million. Number 2, we fly back out to California. Atherton, California is also another suburb in the Silicon Valley area, San Francisco area. Average income there, $1.49 million. So again, dominated by New York, Florida, California, things we talked about. The number 1, and this is a big jump and kind of was a surprise to me, quite honestly, because I just took a vacation here and it's nice, but I didn't think it was that nice. Miami Beach, Florida, and this is a significant uptick. The average adjusted gross income for Miami Beach, Florida, $2.54 million according to the Bloomberg study. So pretty fascinating stuff. Some that may be surprises to you, others that probably are not a surprise. But some other interesting data that came out of it that I wanted to be sure to share. No zip codes in Manhattan. So if you take the island of Manhattan, there were no zip codes in Manhattan in the top 20 wealthiest zip codes. So Manhattan's a little more egalitarian than I was thinking. The top local area that made the top 20 was Weston, Massachusetts, with an adjusted gross income of $860 $100,000. I don't know if we have any viewers in Weston, but if we do, God bless you. And finally, there are more wealthy, I think we talked about zip codes in California and places that are centered around tech hubs. So that's something that certainly benefits areas like Boston as well. So that's a little bit about where the wealthy live. Up next, we're going to be talking about beneficiary designation forms and how to fill them out. Stay with us, there's more to come. Welcome back to the Money Pros. I'm joined now by our estate planning pro, Nancy Fisher-Chudacoff, with Cameron and Mittleman. Nancy, thanks for being with us.
You are welcome.
So we're going to be talking about, sometimes we talk about stuff on the show that has to do with estate planning that may not apply to everybody, but filling out a beneficiary designation form is almost a universal, if you have a retirement plan, an insurance policy, an annuity, an IRA, that covers a lot of people, and they're all going to have to deal with beneficiary designation forms. So we're going to be talking about the right way to get those done. Before we go through, we have a sample beneficiary designation from a to be unnamed but large and prominent life insurance company as our example that we'll take people through. But before we go through that, we were talking before the show about if you ruled the world, what would you do to change beneficiary designation forms? And you had some comments that I thought were worthy of revisiting. So could you share those?
Because I tear my hair out doing these for clients, I would make all beneficiary forms uniform, with enough space to write in even long names like Nancy Fisher-Chudacoff, and with all the options that are needed to make them complete and operative.
And some of them can be frustrating. We were talking about the idea that some companies' forms are better than others. Large corporations maybe have a more well-rounded legal department, have a more comprehensive form, and maybe local banks and things like that, less comprehensive forms. So you really have to know your way around what you're doing in order to fill one of these out accurately.
Absolutely.
And so let's jump into it, and we have some images of this particular form from this particular insurance company, and let's talk about some of the important sections. So we're going to put up the first image, and the first section is on this particular form is section 1, which is the insured. What are we, in this case, this is a life insurance beneficiary designation form. What are we filling in here? What's important about this?
Right, and it would be similar for an IRA or retirement account, but it's basically, the issue is you have to fill it out completely. So they're asking for name, address, date of birth, phone number, social security number, and you have to pay attention and make sure you're filling out everything that they're asking you to fill out.
And section 2 is where we get to the heart of the matter, and on this particular form, section 2 is designating your primary beneficiary. What is the primary beneficiary, and what are some important things to keep in mind when you're filling this section in?
The primary beneficiary is the person or the people that are going to receive the life insurance proceeds or the IRA account upon your death. If someone's married, most likely it's a spouse, otherwise it may be children. And there's a place on the form, if it is children, for designating future children, which is very important. So again, they make it easy for you there to check the box, yes, include future children.
Okay, and another piece that was on that slide is some options in this particular form for electing a testamentary trust or a living trust as a beneficiary. What can you tell us about the selection of that?
Naming a trust as beneficiary can make things easier because you're not having to fill out everyone's names, addresses, and social security numbers. But sometimes if it's a retirement account, the tax treatment can be adverse, or it's harder for the companies to deal with sometimes. They don't really want to have to look at any document other than their beneficiary designation
And
form.
this is something that if there's a trust involved, that means that an attorney was working with the client to put this together. So presumably the attorney is going to be giving some guidance to the client about how this form needs to be filled out if the trust is involved. So to me, those boxes are, if you don't know what they're asking, either talk to your attorney or probably don't touch them, because they probably don't apply to you.
Right, absolutely, ask the attorney.
All right, so let's go to the third slide here, which is designating contingent beneficiaries. Now, we've we filled in our primary beneficiaries. Filling in contingents is very similar, but what's the difference between a contingent and a primary beneficiary?
Well, the contingent beneficiary, again, the person or persons who would take if the primary beneficiary is not living at the death of the insured or the account owner. And I see a lot of people, it's easy, you can just fill in your spouse as primary and then they forget to fill out contingent. And one of the reasons it's important to fill it out completely is that if it's not filled out, the default is usually a payment to the deceased person's estate. That can trigger a probate when there might not have been a probate, or in the case of retirement accounts, it can trigger adverse income tax consequences.
So this is an important consideration because I've found that sometimes people left to their own devices that don't know how to fill out a beneficiary designation form, they'll even write in, I'll make my estate the beneficiary because they don't have a kid's social security number or date of birth, or they don't feel like they can fill it out appropriately. But that really limits options when money gets passed on to an estate, particularly with an IRA. Wouldn't you agree? If an estate is a beneficiary?
It can cause higher income tax consequences for the beneficiaries if the money passes through an estate first.
So even though the particular slide we were just looking at gives the option of actually checking off, in this case option E, insured's estate, that's probably something you want to avoid and do a better job of naming specific individuals or entities as the beneficiary.
Most likely, the only other consideration, particularly for life insurance, is if the estate's going to need money to pay some bills, or but in many cases that doesn't make sense.
All right, next slide I think is basically, it looks the same, but it's actually the section that talks about payments to well, it's not the slide I was expecting, but let's talk about it anyway. Payments to a deceased child or payments to a custodian. This is not an option that I see very frequently on a beneficiary designation form, but given that this is an option on this particular form, and again, let's talk about them. The first one is payment to the issue of a deceased child, and in parentheses they put in a term, a Latin term, per stirpes, that perhaps we could talk about. And then the second option being beneficiary being custodian under a Uniform Transfer to Minors or Uniform Gift to Minors Act. Let's talk about the first one, payment to the issue of a deceased child, per stirpes. What does this mean?
Well, I mean, that essentially means that if one of your children who you've named as a primary or contingent is deceased, that you want that child's share to go to his or her children or other descendants. And to explain what per stirpes means requires me to draw a picture and take about 15 minutes.
Beyond our graphics capabilities, I'm afraid.
But essentially, it's very good that this option is on the form, because if this option isn't on the form, let's say you have 3 kids and one isn't living at your death, then it'll be divided in half, one to each of the surviving children. That's not what most people have in their wills. In their wills or trusts, they usually have the share of a deceased child goes to his or her children. So
this is a really important point, and although we're not able to draw it out, I think the example you give is a perfect one. Somebody names 3 children, 1/3 beneficiaries on their estate, so 3 different kids. One of the kids passes before the owner of the account or the insured on the life insurance policy does. So that 1/3, that person doesn't exist anymore. Then the insured dies. If that per stirpes designation isn't selected, it's now just going to go to the 2 remaining beneficiaries 50-50. If you select per stirpes, that 3rd branch, so to speak, the grandchildren or the successors to that 3rd person will receive the benefit, which, as you point out, is probably what most people
want.
intend.
And if that option is not on a form, you ought to speak to your attorney or the representative at the company and say, I want that option. How do I make that happen?
So an important term, and you got to know a little Latin here. So the other option, custodian, making the beneficiary custodian under a UTMA or UGMA account. In what circumstances might you want to consider doing that?
I mean, if an option is available, you'll always want to do it, because if money goes to a child that's under 18, and it's more than a few $1,000s. In most states, a guardian would have to be appointed to manage the money for the child until the child's 18, and then the child would get it at 18. And that's not what most people want. Most people in their wills at a minimum would have a child get his or her share at age 21, if not age 25. Under the custodian option, at least it can be held until age 21, and you can designate who's the person that's going to take care of it. So again,
and this could potentially be an economical way to set up a trust for a child to protect some money without perhaps going through the more elaborate process of creating a trust and going through that process.
Absolutely. And again, if that option is not on the form, you want to talk to the attorney or the representative of the company and say, how can I do this?
Final slide we want to talk about. Now, you got to sign this thing. So what do we need to know about the signature portion of the form? And this is an area where people go wrong sometimes.
Right. Again, you want to read and make sure you're filling out every block. In this case, this form requires a witness. So you want to make sure that you have a witness. Rarely does it require notarization. For some IRA accounts or retirement accounts, if you're not designating a spouse, particularly 401ks, the spouse has to sign off as well. So again, it's a, these are tedious, but it's so important because most people have a lot of their wealth in retirement accounts or life insurance. So
consult an attorney if you have one, and get some help with this. Certainly, financial advisors can often be of help with more basic forms. But this example that we use is a 6-page form merely to designate the beneficiary on a life insurance policy. So it would be just one portion of the application if somebody were applying for life insurance or if they were amending their beneficiary. So it's pretty complex. Thanks for joining us today to help us fill it out.
Thank you.
All right, up next we're going to be talking about the question of whether or not the IRS might actually owe you money. So stay with us. There's more to come. Welcome back to the Money Pros. So read an interesting article, some information from the IRS that just came to my attention about the question of whether or not the IRS may actually owe you money for tax periods going back before this current filing season. So many of you, April 17th just passed, which was the deadline for this year. Many of you may have had to write checks to the IRS, but for others, they may have been entitled to refunds. And as it turns out, many people don't claim the refunds or all of the refund that they may have been entitled to. So the data that I saw was actually for 2014, and that data is important because you're only allowed to go back 3 years to file an amended return in order to claim a tax refund, or any kind of return in order to claim a tax refund. So 2014, the deadline passed on April 17th, so it's too late for 2014. But the statistics with respect to who's owed money are important because the numbers are likely very similar for 2015, 2016, and so on. So it's important to point out that if you don't file your tax return correctly, you may be leaving money on the table that you're otherwise entitled to. And here are the statistics. The IRS indicated that $1.1 billion in unclaimed tax refunds were available from 2014. So over $1 billion in refunds that were available on 2014 tax returns, then unless somebody filed before April 17th, either an amended or a new tax return, they would not have gotten. IRS estimates this affects 1 million taxpayers in the 2014 filing season alone. It's important to point out that if you failed to file and you were entitled to a refund, there's no penalty for failing to file. You can file and get your refund and you'll get the money. So if you didn't owe any money, if you were entitled to a refund, there's no reason for you not to do it. The median refund amount is $847. So it's a significant amount of money, $847. And some other information they shared, the top states in terms of number of filers that are likely due refunds: Texas, California, Florida, and New York. Now, Rhode Island's not on that list, and that's not surprising because we have, relatively few residents compared to those states. But they were the 7th highest median refund estimates. So those that are potentially owed a refund for 2014, Rhode Island had the 7th highest number. So I said nationwide the average was $847. In Rhode Island the average was $942. So a significant amount of money on average owed to filers from the 2014 tax filing season. And again, it's too late for 2014, but it's not too late for 15, 16, and 17. All right, so what are some of the top reasons why you might in fact be eligible for a refund? Let's throw them back and go through them really quickly. First one is no filing requirement. Many people don't file a return because they realize they don't have to file a return. If you made less than the standard deduction, you're not required to file a return, but you may have been eligible for refundable credits that would provided you with a refund even though you didn't have enough income to justify actually filing a return. Number two, people miss the earned income credit. For people with very low incomes, they can be eligible for the earned income credit. This is a refundable credit, meaning that money can come back to you in excess of any tax dollars you actually paid. It's free money from the government if you're eligible. Number three, American Opportunity Credit. This is a college credit that many people don't claim. If they have eligible college expenses, you could be eligible to claim this credit. This is also a refundable credit. And finally, the simple reason that people change their address. You may change your address after you file your tax return, you're due a refund, IRS tries to send you a check, it doesn't go to you because you've moved, it gets returned to the IRS, and they're waiting with smiles on their face, waiting to pay you. But you only have 3 years to get this sorted out, so it's an important note going forward. They could owe you some money. All right, up next, we're going to talk about how to get in touch with us. If you've got a question, stay with us, there's more to come. Welcome back to the Money Pros. If you've got a question for the Money Pros or if you've got a topic you'd like us to cover here on the show, we want to make sure you know how to get in touch with us. So there are 3 ways you can do it. So let's pop those up on the screen. And first off, you can visit our Money Pros Facebook page. I respond to all our Facebook messages, often answer questions, and I get great ideas from our Facebook followers. You can visit us at foxprovidence.com and click on Ask the Pros. And finally, you can send me an email at moneypros@foxprovidence.com. We respond to all our questions and comments, and sometimes we even do it on the air. So we encourage you to participate. Thanks for watching Money Pros. We'll see you again next Sunday. Take care, folks.